This is the notes for lesson 13A. So in these notes, all of the problems are very similar because they all have to do with the perimeter of a rectangle. So in this case, it says a rectangular room is 4 meters longer than it is wide. Okay, it's longer than it is wide. So if you draw a rectangle, the width is going to be the short side and the length is going to be the long side. We always want to start with the shorter side. So we start with W. Now to find the perimeter, you need to add all the way around. So we have W plus length equals the perimeter. Now we're going to say that our width is going to be our X. So we're going to identify that the width equals X. So the width equals X. So we have X plus X. Okay, now I'm going to draw a new rectangle over here. So if the width is X, that's those two sides. Well, the length is not 4. There is a 4 up there though, right? It says it's 4 meters longer than it is wide. But it doesn't say that it's 4 meters long. It says that it's 4 meters longer than it is wide. So this side is going to be this width plus 4. So X plus 4 and X plus 4. So now we have X plus X plus X plus 4 plus X plus 4 equals, and then it says the perimeter is 36. Okay, our next step is to combine all of our like terms. So we have a 1x, 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 and 1x. So we need to combine all those x's. Well, we have 4 total x's. Okay, then we have to combine our 4's. So 4x plus 8 equals 36. Okay, now we need to solve this. So we find our x, and remember the first step in solving is to undo the addition or subtraction. So we're looking for a plus or a minus, and we notice we have a plus 8. The inverse of addition is subtraction, so we're going to do 4x plus 8 minus 8 equals 36 minus 8. Now 8 minus 8 is 0, so we have 4x equals, okay, 36 minus 8, that's 28. Now the last step is to undo the multiplication. So we find our x and we find that we have a 4 next to the x. Remember that means 4 times x. So the inverse of multiplication is division, so we divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1x. 28 divided by 4 is 7. So our equation was 4x plus 8 equals 36. Okay, now we figured out that our x was 7, and does everybody remember that our x was the width? So our width is 7. Okay, now let's go back and look at our picture. So if I redraw our picture, this is 7 and this is 7. Well, then this one is 7 plus 4 and this one is 7 plus 4. And 7 plus 4 is 11. So that one is 11. And then we submit and we move on to number 2. Now, if you're watching this video, make sure that you have all of the work shown, okay? Now, these pictures off to the side, you can't fit unless you draw them really small. But if they help you, that would be a good idea. Okay, number 2. So the same type of problem. A rectangular room is 3 meters longer than it is wide. Okay, again, this one is longer than it is wide. So when we start with our picture, W is going to be the short side and L is going to be the long side. It's 3 meters longer than it is wide. Okay, so we always start with the short one. So W plus L equals perimeter. Remember that the perimeter you have to add all the way around. Okay, now we're going to draw a new rectangle and instead of W, we're going to use X to represent the short sides. Now, the long side, it says it's 3 meters longer than it is wide. Okay, well, a lot of people want to put 3 here, but it didn't say that the length is 3. It said that it's 3 longer than the width, which means we have to add X to 3. So X plus 3 is our length. So now we have X plus X plus X plus 3 plus X plus 3 equals, and then our perimeter is 38. Now we have to combine our like terms. So there's an invisible 1 in front of each of these x's. So I have 1x, 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 and 1x. That's 4 x's. Then I have to combine my 3 plus 3, and that's 6, and it equals 38. Okay, at this point, now I'm just ready to solve. So I find my x, and remember that the first step in solving is to undo the addition or subtraction. So I see a plus 6. Well, the inverse of adding is subtracting, so I'm going to do 4x plus 6 minus 6 equals 38 minus 6. Okay, 6 minus 6 is 0, so I cross it out, and I have 4x equals, and then 38 minus 6, that's 32. Now, our last step in solving is to undo the multiplication. So we find our x, and we notice that there's a 4 right next to it. Remember, that means 4 times x. So in order to do the opposite, we have to divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1x equals 32 divided by 4 is 8. So now I come up here, and I'm ready to type in my equation. So my equation was 4x plus 6 equals 38. Now, I figured out that x equals 8, but I need to know which one x is. So I go look at my work, and I notice that x is the W. X is the width. So the width is 8. Okay, now I need the length. So I go back over to my picture. So remember that this is 8, and this is 8. And then this one is 8 plus 3, and this one is 8 plus 3. So the length is 11. Okay, now one more time, make sure that you have all of the work written down before you submit, and then move on to number 3. Okay, number 3 is still rectangles and still perimeter, but there's one difference in this one. It says the room is 3 times as wide as it is long, okay? So this time it's wider than it is long. So when we draw our rectangle, it's wider than it is long. So the W is now on the long side, and the L, the length, is on the short side. So that's one difference in this problem. Okay, now we're going to say that we always start with the small side. So the L is the small side. So we have L plus W equals perimeter. Okay, now I'm going to redraw a new picture, and we're going to decide that the short sides, the L's, are going to be X. Okay? Now I'm going to go back up here to what it said, and this one's different. It says it's 3 times as wide as it is long. So not adding this time. Do you see the word times? It means multiply. So the length is 3 times, or the width, is 3 times the length. So I want you to really recognize the difference here, because the wording says it's 3 times. So that's why we're multiplying instead of adding. Okay, now we have to take our L plus L, so that, remember, the L's are the X's, so X plus X. And then we have to do W plus W, and the W's are 3X plus 3X. And it equals the perimeter, which is 56. Okay, now we have to combine our like terms. So this has an invisible 1, and this has an invisible 1, and we need to combine all of our x's. So 1x plus 1x is 2x. 2x plus 3x is 5x. 5x plus 3x is 8x. So we have 8x's and it equals 56. Now remember that the first step is to undo the addition or subtraction. So we find our x and then we look for a plus or a minus. But do you notice there isn't one? There's no plus or minus. So that means we can skip that step. So now we go to the next step, which is to undo the multiplication. So we notice that there's an 8 right next to the x, and that means 8 times x. The inverse of multiplication is division, so we divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1x, and then 56 divided by 8 is 7. Okay, now we go back and we type in our equation, which was 8x equals 56. And now we figured out that x equals 7, and we need to remember whether x is the L or the W. So if you look, do you see that the x is the L? So the length is 7. Okay, now we need the width, okay? So we're going to go over to our picture, and we're going to make a new picture. So our x was 7. Well, then this side is going to be 3 times 7, and this side's going to be 3 times 7. So 3 times 7 is 21, which means the width is 21. Okay, again, make sure you have all of the work before you submit and move on to number 4. Okay, number 4. Just like number 3, it has the word times in it. So a rectangular field is 3 times as long as it is wide. Okay, 3 times as long as it is wide. That means it's longer than it is wide. So the W goes on the short side and the L goes on the long side. We always start with the short side. So W plus L plus L equals perimeter. Okay, now we're going to go draw a new rectangle. And the W's are going to be the X because the short side is always the X. Now the length, it says it's 3 times as long. So do you see that it says 3 times? So it's not 3 more, which would be adding 3. It's 3 times, which is multiplying by 3. So that means that this is 3x and this is 3x. Okay, so now I'm going to go put my x's into my equation. So W is x. So I have x plus x. Okay, and then look at our L's. L is 3x plus 3x plus 3x equals, and the perimeter is 520. Now, next to the x's that don't have a number, remember there's an invisible 1. And I have to combine my x's. So 1x plus 1x plus 3x plus 3x is a total of 8 x's. So 8x equals 520. Now the first step in solving is to always undo the addition or subtraction. So we find our x and then we look for a plus or a minus. But there isn't one. So that means that we don't do that step because there isn't one. So now we look for what is being multiplied by the x. And do you notice that it's 8? It's 8 that is being multiplied by the x. Okay, the inverse of multiplication is division, so we divide both sides by 8. So then 8 divided by 8 is 1x, and then 520 divided by 8. Okay, I'm going to make my division box. 8 goes into 52 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48. 52 minus 48 is 4. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. Okay, so 65 is my x. Okay, now I'm ready to go and put in my equation, which was 8x equals 520. Now, I figured out what my x equals, and my x is the W. So my W is 65. Okay, now we're going to go back to our pictures. So the x is 65. Okay, now the other side is 3 times 65. Okay, so now I have to do 65 times 3. 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So 195 is my length. So remember to make sure you have all of the work written down in your notes. And that is the notes for this lesson. They're not super long this time. And the homework is 13A. Have a great day, and I will see you next class.